Joining us now, Republican Congressman Mike McCaul of Texas. He's the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee. He's also a key member of the Foreign Affairs Committee. Senator, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Wolf.
You like the idea that the initial 2-hour session between the president and the North Korean leader, just the two of them with only interpreters present? Because normally in a sensitive meeting like this, you want at least one senior aide from both sides, at least to take notes.
You know, I actually do. This is called a meet and greet. This is the beginning of the conversation, I think, towards a peaceful resolution, if that's possible. I know the president's personality, the personal chemistry means a lot to him, and this will give him an opportunity to feel out Kim Jong-un one-on-one and to, in his assessment, whether he can be trusted or not.
Well, what happens if there are very different interpretations, analyses of what happened during that one-on-one meeting, a North Korean version versus a U.S. version?
I think it's good to have some confidentiality and speak candidly without cameras in the room. Now, the second phase will have the advisors. I think Secretary of State will be there and the Chief of Staff, and we'll have a second conversation. Again, I wouldn't raise the expectations too high here. I think this is the beginning of the conversations. I know Mike Pompeo is very optimistic, which I was glad to hear that tone, but I would also exercise a good deal of caution. The Kim dynasty, 3 administrations, 3 presidents, have basically gotten concessions from us and then thrown us under the bus.
The president says he'll know within a minute, whether or not this is a good idea, a bad idea. He can tell. He's got the instinct. He's got the judgment. You believe that?
I think that's his personality. I mean, just he either hits it off with people or he doesn't.
Within a minute?
It's not. There's no gray area. It's black and white with him. I think in a minute he's going to know, do I like this guy or not? There's been a lot of preparation for this meeting as well, and I think they do have some things already pre-negotiated that they'll be able to sign a document at the end of this.
But you know who Kim Jong-un is. You know what he's done in North Korea. He's a pretty brutal dictator.
The human rights issues, the ICBM capabilities, direct threats to the homeland, a lot of these issues need to be on the negotiation table. What I like about this one, as opposed to the Iran deal, is that he's willing to walk away from the table if necessary.
You mean the president?
The president could walk away.
Should he raise human rights in this initial meeting?
I certainly think the ICBM capability is part of this. A miniaturized nuclear warhead.
What about the way he treats his own people? The North Korean leader.
I do think this should be as much on the table as possible. He's also said he's going to work with Congress, very important from how the Iran deal. This is almost reminiscent of Nixon going to China and sort of an opportunity there to normalize relations in a country that's been very anything but normal.
But you remember what the president said about North Korea in his UN General Assembly speech about a year or so ago. He went through the gulag, the prison camps, the starvation, the torture, all of that. He went point by point by point. And if he comes into this meeting and doesn't even raise it with the North Korean leader, what does that say?
Well, yeah, the United States Congress passed sanctions on North Korea based upon their human rights violations and behavior, particularly the student who came back and died and was tortured by the North Koreans. Yeah, of course, and I think that has to be part of this negotiation.
So you think the president should, at least at a minimum, raise all these issues? I
mean, you have to be diplomatic. I don't know if this president, I think Pompeo certainly has laid the groundwork on this, and I think it should be part of the discussion.
Let's talk about this. You know, he's trying to improve relations with North Korea, but the U.S. relationship with key allies like Canada and France and Germany clearly very strained right now in the aftermath of the G7. The president was deeply offended by what the Prime Minister of Canada, Prime Minister Trudeau, had to say, which wasn't even all that significant. He just said, you know, if the U.S. is going to impose tariffs on Canada, Canada will reciprocate. Did the president make a major blunder by sending his 2 top economic advisors out there and smearing Prime Minister Trudeau the way they did?
Look, we need our allies in this, and our allies need to be joined with us in what's the biggest, perhaps, nuclear threat to the world. And so I think it's important we maintain those friendships. Would I prefer to see that go differently? Perhaps. I have a different perspective on tariffs.
But you can't justify this saying by Peter Navarro, the trade advisor to the president, that there's a special place in hell for Prime Minister Trudeau.
Well, and let me just, getting into the mind of Kim Jong-un, I really don't think he cares about all that.
No, but I'm just, forget about Kim Jong-un for a moment. Yeah. I'm asking about U.S.-Canadian relations. Canada clearly, arguably, the closest ally the United States has, the top trading partner of the United States. For a senior advisor to the president to say he belongs, there's a special place in hell for him, and for what Larry Kudlow, the top economic advisor, what he had to say, you heard it earlier. Forget about North Korea for a moment, but for senior aides to smear the Prime Minister of Canada like that. Is that acceptable?
That's not the rhetoric I would use, and NAFTA is very important to my home state of Texas. Mexico is our largest trading partner, and we don't want to see that relationship or Canada's impacted such that that document is shredded. In addition, in my energy sector, they rely a great deal on steel, and so these tariffs are not going to be particularly productive for them. And I have to look at my district. But getting back to Kim Jong-un, I don't think in these negotiations that's really going to make a whole lot of difference.
I suspect it won't make a whole lot of difference, but I'm just wondering about the U.S.-Canadian relationship, which is so very, very important.
We have our allies, we have our enemies. I think it's important to make that distinction clear.
Yeah, so you disagree with what those advisors to the president said?
This is a time we need every ally we have on the table to force North Korea to dismantle its nuclear weapons program.
Mr. Chairman, thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Wolf.
Mike McCaul of Texas.